My name is Kayla Bellamy, and I'm the bassoon professor at the University of Northern Iowa. This video is now the fourth video in a series of videos designed to help you prepare for the 2015 Iowa All-State Band and Orchestra auditions. In this video, we're still going to be taking a look at one of the issues that plagues a lot of auditioning bassoonists, which is that of notes cracking. And specifically this time we're going to take a look at the second etude, which is number 39 out of the Weissenborn book. In the first video where I really addressed cracking, it was more about flicking and venting, right? Using these keys to help the notes A, B flat, B natural, and C speak very clearly. In this video, in contrast to that, I'm going to take a look at half-holing and show you some of the ways that you can really finesse the size and the placement and the timing of how you're moving this first finger in order to get the notes that are immediately below that, the F sharp, G, G sharp, to speak without any sort of cracking. And similarly, we can use that half-holing technique an octave above in the higher F sharp, G, and G sharp, which are the notes that really tend to crack on the bassoon. And so even if we look at this very first measure, if we're looking for those notes that are cracking notes as a result of a poor half-hole, F sharp on the third eighth note of beat 2 really stands out to me, the G sharp on the third eighth note of beat 3, and then into the second measure we have to slur down to a G sharp for beat 2. And this is actually a really scary bassoon set of measures because the half-holing can be a really intimidating thing. And so for the most part, if you're having cracking issues with the notes F sharp and G, it's because the first finger half-hole is not aggressive enough. So you're not releasing enough air by this rotating motion of your first finger. And on the G sharp, if it tends to crack on the G sharp, you're probably being a little too aggressive with that half-hole. And so it's releasing a little bit too much air and the air is cracking a little too much. So let's look at the F sharp, and I'd like for you to go ahead and play along if you have your bassoon handy. We're going to take F sharp and start out with the hole completely closed. I'm going to step up really close here so you can see what I'm doing. Start with the hole completely closed, and I'm just going to articulate at a steady pace notes as I gradually open the half hole. And you notice at some point there will become a point where the articulation is clear and then becomes unclear again. So if I start completely closed, you get that nasty crack sound. That's what we're listening for. So I got the hole all the way open before, and there were still no cracked signs, or still no cracked sounds. If you notice, about halfway through is where the articulation got clear, and then the hole was about 3/4 of the way open. The tone quality started getting really raw, and it started going out of tune. So I'll play it for you again so you can hear that. That just means that the magic point, the magic position for the half hole for F sharp is almost a real half hole. It's somewhere in between 50% and probably 60% of the hole covered. Two beats or the last two articulations, the tone quality was really kind of not what we would like on that F sharp. And so what I'm looking to do then is really emphasize the amount of time that I spend in that magic half hole area and de-emphasize, or really not do at all, anything that has too small or too large of a half hole in order to maximize the effect of that F sharp. I'm going to switch over and do the next exercise with the pinky, or this front F sharp, simply because if you look at the first measure of this etude, you have to use that fingering on beat 2 when you're coming from a D sharp. You're going to have to use what many people refer to as an alternate F sharp. So I'm going to use that front fingering, and what I'm going to do is start with the half hole 2 closed, gradually open it until the sound is clear, and then repeat the success, so building muscle memory and building habit of having that first finger in that position for F sharp. So now the sound is clear, not moving my finger. And then very slowly putting that one fingering back into context. I mentioned in the first measure you have to slur to it from a D sharp. So now we're going to slur from D sharp just to F sharp, just that interval isolated, really working on that half hole. Paying special attention to how much you have to rotate your first finger to get that F sharp to come out without cracking. F sharp's pretty clear. Let's take a look at the next note. The next half whole note in that opening passage is a G sharp. Now I've already mentioned that G sharps need a slightly smaller half whole than F sharps and G do, but let's find out exactly where that is. We're going to do that with the same process, starting completely closed, gradually opening the half hole until it's completely opened, and see where the magic spot is for that half hole opening on a G sharp. When I got about 3/4 open to fully open, which is only a little bit farther than the F sharp, the note started getting that little chip at the very beginning of it. I'll play it for you again. You hear that ka sound at the beginning? So really the magic position for that G sharp's a little bit more closed than it was for the F sharp. So just like with the F sharp, we're going to do the same thing, repeating success, finding the place where the note sounds good, and creating muscle memory and mental memory for how open that half hole has to be. And when we put that back in context, you have to slur to it from an A, which is really not that difficult. The G sharp will come out with a poor half hole, but it will not come out with a poor half hole in the second measure when you slur down from a C sharp. So let's try both of those intervals, really isolating. It's really more like a quarter hole, right? Really isolating where your finger is for that G sharp. Here's A first. From C sharp, I would recommend using the short C sharp fingering here. If you know more than one C sharp fingering, if the only fingering you know is 1, 2, 3 and the C sharp and D key, that's okay. If you're using anything in your right hand to increase resonance, I would recommend leaving that off in this passage just because it's so quiet. And also it prevents any sort, or gets rid of any sort of sliding you might have to do to get down to that G sharp that might jostle your embouchure. So go ahead and use a short C sharp fingering. We're going to slur the short C sharp down to G sharp, again focusing on opening only a quarter of the hole to get that G sharp speak. And when we put all of this in context together, those first two measures are really about the size of the half hole in the F sharp and then the size of the half hole in the G sharp, in the context of leading all the way from measure 1 into measure 2. So here is the first two measures, here are the first two measures of etude number 39. Notice that first finger was a lot more accurate, hopefully, than the first time that you played through this. Scan through the etude and just take note of how many F sharps, G's, and G sharps there are on this. And this may seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but it's completely worth your while to do this exercise with every single one. So find out how many different ways you have to approach F sharp in this etude, how many different ways you have to approach G, there aren't very many of those, and how many different ways you have to approach G sharp. There are quite a few of them with varied approaches. Some of them you have to articulate just right off the top. Some of them I'm looking in at the fourth line. In the third and fourth lines, you just have to pick off some high G sharps. Go ahead and do this exercise with high G sharp as well. Finding where that magic spot is. Putting it in context, like the fourth line, I have to leap up to it from a C sharp. I have to leap up to it from a B. And then putting all of that together, those two little isolated intervals back in context in a very short phrase. This is the fourth line. getting rid of those cracks at the beginning of the note. I hope this is helpful in identifying the different sizes of half holes and helping you get rid of some of the cracking that may be plaguing you in this etude number 39. We'll take a look at a couple of other practice points in various videos that are forthcoming, or at the All-State workshops in this upcoming weekend. If you're in the Cedar Falls area, please do register and come onto campus. They're from 1 to 4, and I hope to see you there. I'll give you some in-person help with this. Thanks.